Hi guys, welcome back to another art tour video. So this one is a new doll that I just recently finished. So it is available in my shop creaturesandhat.com, and also payment plans are welcome, so just shoot me a message and I can let you know how they work. I'm super flexible, so I try to make it as easy as possible basically for people. But it is a little bison doll. Look at it from a distance here. Look at the little face. Little focus. Ooh. There you go. Focus at his little face. See the little eyes there. Same deal on that side. So the face is made from polymer clay. It actually took a whole block of Sculpey Original to sculpt this, so his head's quite solid. It's a very interesting thing to sculpt because it's just a whole different way of the way it's constructed. So yeah, faux fur as well. It's got a ball and socket armature inside, so he's posable as much as you can pose a big bison. Little tail has a wire armature in it, so I could just to get that little bit more definition in the tail. And he's got the little flicky on the bottom, so you can pose a tail anyway because it's got that wire armature. The hooves are also sculpted in Sculpey, so did a little bit of airbrushing and some refining here just to get that little divot that they have in their back there. Anyway, I was just signing off anyway. So that's pretty much it. Like I said, if you want to purchase any of my dolls, you can head to my store at creaturesandhat.com and just shoot me a message if you want to know how the payment plans work. So I try and be super flexible so people have a chance. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And if you want to know how I made him, then just keep watching the video. Alright, so I'm starting off by painting some glass capuchons for the eyes. I'm just doing the pupil first and then letting that dry, and then going ahead and doing the iris part. I'm just using water-based acrylic paints for this one, but they don't seem to have a reaction to polymer clay. So I'm going to leave that to dry and I can start working on the head. So I do a aluminium core armature, and I basically wrap that with the polymer clay that I'm going to be using. Now I use Sculpey Original for majority of my things. If I'm doing things that need like a beige color, like a cat nose or something, I use Super Sculpey. Works really well for that type of thing. This bison took a whole block of Sculpey to do the head because it is quite a large head, and the proportions on the bisons were really different from any other doll, so I spent a bit of time sculpting the head for this one just to get it right, because a lot of the time I wasn't really happy with it. So I just spent that little bit of extra time sculpting the head. So working on the nose area for this one and just building that section up so I can start working on the rest of the doll. I use a little ball tools to create the nostrils on the bison's nose. And building up the mouth area, which I ended up changing when I sculpted most of it. Towards the end of the sculpt, I ended up changing just the way it was sitting, because that's basically what was making the head look a little bit off. So I just changed the mouth area a little bit and it looks much better. And a lot of the sculpting is just building up and comparing it to the reference images that I have on my computer next to me, making sure that I have everything symmetrical and all dimensions are correct. Just building up the eye area, I put these little balls of polymer clay down just to create sort of an eye socket, because the capuchons that I'm using have a flat back, so I put this down to sort of bulk up the back of it a little bit and make it sit a bit more flush. And then once I've placed the little eyes, tiny little eyes, on the doll, I can start working on the eyelid and the brow area, and I just do that by rolling out snake worm sized bits of clay and just sculpting some details once I've put all that on. Working on the ears this time, I ended up cutting these ears in half because they're a little bit too big for my liking. So after I put them on, I just sort of blended it out a little bit and made them a bit smaller because they're just a little bit too big. For the horns, I just roll out 2 bits of clay that are the same size and just basically pull the end of it to create this little horn tip. I then cut the end off and place it onto just above the ears, onto the head, and just blend it in a little bit so they don't fall off. Once it's done and I'm happy with the way everything's looking, I can start adding a little bit of fur texture. I'm adding it to like the nose and the eye area, so where there's thin bits of faux fur, so I can sort of blend it in a bit better. For the hooves, I've rolled out 4 bits of clay and just basically shaped them with my hands and cut a toe into them. It's really simple to sculpt these types of hooves. It's just a little bit of fiddling around with the toe area, but they're pretty quick to sculpt. It's much easier than sculpting cat paws, so definitely have a go at sculpting some hooves. Alright, once that's baked, I can start painting everything. I did add a ball and socket armature to this one, and it is my 1/4 size, so the middle size. That's strong enough to support the head for this one. I'm just painting up all the pieces. So I'm just painting the horns in black undertone. I'm just going to do like a white dry brush over the top of it once it's dry to create like those little weathered look. The nose I'm just painting in a black, and then I'm going to go over it with a couple of brown dots just to give it a little bit of texture and a little bit of black around the eyes as well. The hooves I'm painting in black, the same as the horns, and I'm just going to go over it once it's dry with a little bit of white dry brushing, just to create that weathered look again. Alright, so for the armature, I'm popping all the pieces together. So again, this is the 1/4 size. I have coils and stuff in my shop if you're interested in doing a little bit of armature for yourself. I have the supplies. They am out of both sizes of the pliers, but I have the larger size pliers left. I think I only have 2 left. And yeah, just popping the armature together using these pliers, and then I can start needle felting the body. So once I'm happy with that, I then go over the armature with some pipe cleaner, and that basically allows the polyfill to catch on something, and I can needle felt the body a little bit better. So for the body, I use polyfill, and that's just basically cushion stuffing and just a single needle felting needle. I've tried multiple needles, but I just find it doesn't really work as well as a single needle. So just felting basically the muscle tone of the bison. So as bisons are really thick, it uses a lot of polyfill, so yeah, definitely took a bit of time to bulk out the body for this one. And for half the body, I'm going to be using this minky fabric, and that's basically the back half of the body where they don't have a lot of that scraggly fur. So I decided to use the minky fabric for this one, and I'm just pinning it all together and pinning it, cutting it and pinning it together. And then I'm going to be sewing it up using a lattice stitch. These ones always take a little bit more fiddling around because it doesn't have a long pile on it, so you have to be careful to make sure things are looking symmetrical and everything isn't crooked. For the tail, I just used a little bit of wire armature just so I can get that definition at the back end of the tail, and then I'm going to be sewing that pretty tightly close together so I can use that wire armature to create that little tailbone look. Alright, so for the rest of the body, I'm going to be using this Mongolian faux fur, and it's like this nice caramel colour, and I'm just going to be adding a little bit of airbrushing colour to it once I have sewn it all together. So the same deal as the back of the body, I'm just cutting it out and pinning it together, trimming off the excess and sewing it all up using a lattice stitch. And then I'm sewing a small bit of brown Mongolian faux fur at the end of the tail just to create that little fly swatter bit. and then sewing the legs on in the minky fabric using again a ladder stitch. And once I've sewn the torso piece of that caramel Mongolian fur, I'm going to be doing the legs in a brown colour. So I've cut a couple of pieces off and pinned it together. Now I'm going to be sewing it up using a ladder stitch. Once everything's sewn, I can start gluing everything together. So I'm using a tacky fabric glue to glue my fabric to my polymer clay pieces, and I usually leave that to dry overnight to make sure it's nice and secure. Then I'll be adding some faux fur to the head in a brown colour and sort of blending out everything. It's still sewn up, and I've given it a little trim as well. So I'm using some fabric paint for the blending. It wasn't as dark as I wanted it to, but it still blended nicely into the rest of the coat. And I did a little bit of airbrushing around the leg area and just a little bit more definition around the hump and the back of it. Just airbrushing sort of some patterns into it, or some shadows into it, which made it gives it a bit more muscle tone. So that is pretty much it for this little Bison doll. He has sold, so he's not available, but I do have more dolls in my shop. So check out my shop at creaturesinart.com. I do offer payment plans for everything, so just shoot me a message if you want to know how they work. I try to be super flexible so everyone has a chance. And thanks to my patrons for supporting me, I really appreciate it. And you can also check me out on TikTok, Instagram and Facebook at Creatures of Nat. Okay, don't forget to like, subscribe, all that stuff, and I'll catch you in the next one. Bye!